Welcome back to the garden. Today we're going to plant some onions in our Hugelkultur inspired raised bed that we've been experimenting with. Not sure the exact variety. A friend of mine picked these up for me. I know one of them's a sweet onion, the other two are a type of Dutch Valley type onion. I'm not really sure. But we're going to plant them in this raised bed. Now I've grown onions before in the ground, but never in a raised bed, much less this type of raised bed. You'd have to look at that video of the putting together of that. But there's a tool here I want to talk to you about. It's not really necessary. I've seen it in a lot of videos, and so I'm afraid somebody's going to ask me why I've done it that way, so I'm going to go ahead and just talk about it now where I don't have to comment later. I've seen a lot of these people that's doing these raised beds that, as I've been studying them and getting interested in it, that they make them like a story pole where it's got marks on it. And that's basically what I'm going to do. I got access through my job. A lot of people, carpenters, they break tape measures and things like that, and so I can get pieces of them. So I've just, like, my bed's 4 foot wide on the inside diameter, so I've got a piece here that's 4 foot. Then for my different plants that I plan on and putting in them, I know that as I move this down my bed, I can count out 4 inches to put my stuff. It's not about being pretty, it's about getting the most out of the space that I have available. And so I know that I want my onions 4 inches apart, so I've also got some other pieces of tape that I broke that's 4 inches that I'll use for my spacing on each end. Pretty simple, same thing they're doing with the wood poles. For me, these are lighter and they're free. Before you decide to buy your onion, you need to decide what type or how big of onions you want to grow. That's going to determine your spacing, how many you need, and how far you should space them apart. If you're starting with sets or seeds, and you plan on growing big onions and growing them through the long season, I would plant them at least 6 inches apart. I'm not interested necessarily in big onions. I did grow some in the ground years ago. I'm more interested in a decent sized little tasty piece. Just me and my wife, we're not going to eat a pile of them, and a few top. So I'm going to plant mine on 4-inch spacing. And I'm going to do that by using that little device I showed you out of the tape measure. And we're not going to be exact. We're just going to use it for a guide to try to get the most space that we can get use of. First thing we need to do, we're going to get over here and uncover our bed where we can get down to our surface and break it up. Same way as we're removing this, let me mention to you, I initially just covered this to keep it covered with some pine straw. I've done a lot of research and I've seen different things about whether people like to mulch their onion beds with pine straw or leaves or hay. So we're going to do an experiment on this. We're going to mulch half the bed with oak leaves and the other half with pine straw after we plant these. And that'll give us a chance to see if one works any better than the other. At this point, if it was an existing bed that had been setting, you'd need to break this up. I'm not waiting the time like I should have. I actually just finished putting this bed together yesterday. This soil's not loose or not compacted at all. So I'm gonna spend my time just leveling this dirt so that we can prepare to plant this onion bed. Now at this point, we've got our bed pretty well level for what we want. I also know from when I growed onions in the ground that sweet onions traditionally seem to, in my area, to get taller tops on them. Based on the fact that I'm going to grow them in this raised bed, you have to take into account the way the sun's going to move. So for me, I'm going to put the sweet onions on this end and my other scallion type onions on the other end. And that way I won't have to worry about, as the sun comes over, one shading the other or vice versa. Plus, I plan on probably letting the sweet onions grow a little longer. So we'll start them on this back edge of this bed. Before I plant my onion bulbs, I like to get my bag and get me a bucket and go through them, pick them out. Show you what we're gonna do here, show you about this onion in case you don't know. Some of you probably do, but when you look at a bulb, you'll notice on the bottom, see how that's got the brown round area with the little things, even if it don't have those are your little roots. And then just that tip. This is the bottom of your onion. This is what you want to put in the dirt. We're going to put them in the dirt and we're going to leave about that much sticking out of the top. That's what we're going to be doing. So these are our sweets. Let's roll on over to the bed and I'll show you what I'm talking about. We know that our first post, we're going with a 4-inch. Our post is about 3.5 inches, so we'll put our first row right level with that. Skip our 4 inches since we're going 4 inches, and remember, root down. Root ball end down, other part up. Just like that. And move that tape measure. We're just gonna push it in the ground, pull the dirt up around it. And then we're gonna come out 4 inches from that one. Remembering the piece with the brown tip down, this piece sticking up. So we're gonna come down, we put that in at our 8-inch, we're gonna come down to 12-inch. We're gonna pull it back so that we stay level on our line. And we're gonna do it the same way. We're gonna push it in to about that level, and then pull our dirt around it and leave just the tip sticking out, kind of pack it in. Pull our tape back to our post, remembering the root end, little black end, down, pointed in, up. And we're going to repeat this process throughout this row till we get to the other side. Just the tip sticking out. And so we'll just continue down throughout this bed, making sure each time that you stay on your 4-inch mark. So now that we've completed our first row, just to get our rough 4-inch markings, I'm going to lay these pieces I have that are 4 inches underneath where they match up with this side of my tape. I'm going to do that on both sides. And when you're doing this, you want that good spacing, just simple and easy. Won't take just a second. I'm kind of extenuating it out so that you can see. And then we'll just take our tape measure and slide it over on both ends so that we're lined up with our tape. Now to give us our 4 inches from there, and we'll repeat the process. So we're just about done with our sweet onions. I decided not to cover them yet, and that way once we get the whole bed in, I can kind of give you an idea. You can look at them, see the spacing on them. Next, after these sweets, we're going to put in our scallion type, our white and our yellow varieties. There's also a purple type, but I wasn't able to get none of them yet this year. There we go. Now we're going to move on to our scallions. Now the next onions we're going to plant are these white and yellow scallion type onions. These are ideal, especially if you like to cook soups or something like that. They'll get up a little bigger than they are. They'll put on some nice tops. You can walk out there and just pluck one of these out of the garden, chop it up, put it in a meal, or get you 2 of them. These are really nice. I'm going to plant the whites next to my super sweets. My super sweets are yellow, so I'm going to plant the whites and then the yellow. That way I'll have yellow, white, yellow. There is really no gardening theory to that. Other than I like to drink beer, and I might get out here harvesting some onions and be drinking some beer. And if I got the yellow and the yellow planted together, I'm liable to harvest the sweets and the scallions before I realize what happened. That ain't true. These are pretty much basically just like them sweets. If you look at them, you can see on the bottom where you got your dark spot with your little hairy roots trying to come out, and then you point on the top. We're going to plant these the same way. Root part down, about that much of the top sticking up out of the dirt. Now you'll notice as we start with these white onions, there's already a couple of these sweet onions here. There's no reason for me to skip that row or try to go buy more. I mean, I'll just continue right on where we left off and go with the white onions. It's not going to have any problem with them growing. Onions don't care about color. And I guess that's what's really nice about gardening and relaxing. It takes you away from society and the hustle and flustle of the day. You get out there and get focused and you think about what you're doing. You don't think about the world and the society. I guess that's what kind of attracted me to gardening. If something fails, it's my own fault. I can't blame it on nobody in the garden. And you struggle just to improve. So we're going to keep on planting right on down, get these white ones in the ground. We're about to finish up our whites and our scallion variety on our 4-inch spacing, roughly. And I'm expecting to have some space left at the end of this bed. We're going to scatter some seed that I don't even know what it is. I'll let the writing get off of it. I do know it's fall stuff, so we're going to scatter it and see. So let's move on now to the yellow Granix onion. Fall's right here and be a good opportunity to show you something, but let's talk about what's a good onion worth planting and what ain't. Now, there ain't no doubt that's a good bulb. Anybody could tell that. Now that bulb, when you squeeze it, it's squishy all the way through. You can feel it's kind of wet in the center. Now that bulb is hard in the center and kind of rotted on the outside. When I used to grow onions in the ground, I've seen bulbs like that grow with no problem. So if I pick it up and it just looks rough on the outside, but it's solid inside, I plant it. If I pick it up and it's squishy like that with no good core inside, I don't waste my time with that. I throw that away. So just keep that in mind. That and squishy all the way through. That one's got a hard center. We'll put that baby in the dirt. We're going to continue on doing the same thing we did with the two previous ones. Brown spot on the bottom with the little hair-like roots coming out down, tip sticking up just about that much out of the dirt. Staying with our 4 inches. All right, so we got our onions planted now. I'll give you an overall pan of what we're looking at. And normally I wouldn't have left these onions open like this even in the ground. I'd have covered them as a win. I did this just to show you kind of the spacing and what we're looking at here in this bed. So at this point, if you had left them open because you wanted to add something on top, you could come back and just sprinkle you a little bit of soil on the top of them. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to simply reach down around each one and pull my dirt around and kind of pack it in. And I'll keep a watch over the next few weeks because I'll water with a soaker hose. So I don't have to worry too much. If you water with a sprinkler, then you're going to need to keep a definite check to make sure you're not beating all the soil out from around your onion as it comes up. So I'm going to just roll through this bed and do that, and then we're going to talk about watering it in and mulching it. So we got our onions planted down in the end. I think I've started with some broccoli and some collards, I believe. I couldn't really read the packs. So out of just being curious, we're going to put some regular oak leaves on this side and some pine straw on this side. I'm going to do it real lightly, and then once they go to coming up, I'll adjust it accordingly. This way, with our onions being run this way, we'll have a chance to test the pine straw and the leaves and see if there is any difference in the way that it grows and holds moisture. May not be, but this will be a good test, so I'm going to just go ahead and start putting that out. Extremely lightly to begin with, as we can come back later and adjust. Now we got our oak leaves done, we're going to do this side with our pine straw. Don't do it thick. We can come back as we get them sprouting up and make our adjustments. You don't want to smother them out. We got her mulched lightly. We'll adjust as we go. You can see I left the end where I put them type of green or broccoli or whatever seeds them was open. Now we're going to stretch a soaker hose out so we can keep her watered. So we got our onions planted, we got our mulch in, we got our soaker hose on. So everything I've been working hard for in this Hugelkultur inspired bed, building it up, has come to this point to be able to do our actual experiment. Will it grow with just regular old Florida yard dirt and some stuff around the house mixed in, with the exception of the coconut coir? We're going to find out. I got that soaker hose in, it's putting the water to it. I'll run that soaker hose probably about every third or fourth afternoon for about an hour, hour and a half. I have the same soaker hose in the bed next to this with my greens, and it seems to do well that way. I'll probably change that out to some other type of water system as I study and learn. First, I'm going to just try to figure out how to grow in these beds, and then we'll cross that path. As far as the bed itself, in the next video, hopefully by the time, if I have the money, by the time we come back and you see the progress of whatever we're doing in these onions, I'll have the doors on like the bed to the side of me. So I hope y'all have enjoyed this. I hope you'll follow along, and let's see if this thing will grow onions. Thank y'all for watching.